TV. It's Independence Day, the 9th of October. 61 years to be exact is what we are celebrating. Self-rule, self-governance, but there are those who will question that. They have their reasons and they have their points to debate. I'll be introducing my guests very shortly, but just a reminder that national celebrations are getting underway in Kitgum, and of course that's where President Yoweri Museveni and a host of government officials, the diplomatic corps and civil society actors will be converging for the celebrations. The theme is sustaining a united, progressive nation, taking charge of our future as a free nation. We shall be discussing aspects including freedom. Is Uganda really free, especially in the political space? But can we sustain cohesion and unity? Earlier in the program, I read out an excerpt from a speech by Prime Minister at the time, Milton Obote, where he spoke about some of the things that we could be seeing today. He was very concerned about tribe. Now that we have people who are saying certain aspects of government are being run on the slant of tribe is debatable. I earlier said tribalism and being tribalistic are two different things. Tribalistic is loyalty, unquestioning love for your tribe and being able to take those values forward, while tribalism is simply forming as a tribe. It could be difficult to come to terms with, but that's it. Sarah Birete is the Executive Director at the Center for Constitutional Governance. Many thanks for joining us.
Thank you, and good morning, viewers.
And Joseph Otieno, I love to say you are a seasoned political commentator. You're also a stalwart of the Uganda People's Congress and an aspiring president for the party. Happy Independence Day.
Thank you for having me on the day when UPC took the reign of governance of this country. I'm delighted to be here with you.
Okay.
I hope at some stage Uganda will be the Uganda that we wanted.
All right. We are very emboldened by your presence as one of the members, the older members of a party that took the reins of power on 9th October 1962. Before I even ask any questions, take us through how it was. 1962, you should have been a very young man.
I was then closely planned. I was then closely planned.
Okay.
But I happen to have the privilege to now know through a literary process, through folklore and through first-hand accounts by those who were there, including President Obote and then Prime Minister. No, I think this was a very important day 61 years ago.
Hey,
in fact,
by the way, you're not 61?
Do I look that?
No, I'm trying to figure it out, but hey,
close.
61 is a whole lot of years.
Close, yes, close. But I have hit 60, and I will be celebrating the 60 plus very, very soon.
Invite Sarah.
Yeah, so no, it's an exciting season to be here.
Yeah.
It's exciting to be just about as old as the Republic of Uganda. But it's very unfortunate that at my age, I see what's going on, and I see what my parents were planning with, the founding parents of this country, and it's not the reality that I wish. But no, as I was saying, really from about the 8th of October, yesterday, 61 years ago, it would have been a very nostalgic time for our leaders at the time. There was this drive to push for a new nation where we would be having Africans taking charge of their economy, taking charge of their country, taking charge of their destiny. And at that particular time, people were substantially convinced that all our faults, I mean, all our problems were because of white people in charge. To an extent, they were right. In some of the independence people, they had struggled for about 8 to 10 years seeking to claim that independence. They did so without necessarily much violence. In Uganda's independence, we were lucky that it was through negotiations, it was through discussions, it was through political campaigns around the country, and it was through give and take across across the country, different kind of identities, different kind of interests, and particularly the 1961 independence conversations that brought together the various identities in Uganda in Lancaster. Some people criticized that why did we have this conversation in Lancaster? Quite clearly, a British colony. If you see how and Britain controlled and had the power. But if you see really how the various identities came together, the kingdoms, including the lead kingdom, Uganda, at the time, that had a central and very core interest and almost very reluctant to become a part of another ordinary nation state within the broader nation, the Republic of Uganda, and other Republican identities, including UMI, Bukedi, and the rest of the Teso, of Teso, West Nile, Northern Uganda, where they talk about Acholi, Lango, and others. You know, it was an extraordinary moment. That day, you know, as it happened, we had a new government, but a new government that had been tested through an electoral mandate. We had successful elections in April the previous year. We had a political party that emerged, the majority party. We had a conversation that saw a discussion that led to KY and UPC forming a government. And we had the Democratic Party, you know, reluctantly but conceding to become an opposition governing political party. So we really at independence, this day, that time, it was Africans, you know, predominantly leading and beginning to chart a destiny for themselves. And fast forward over a 10-year period, you know, this country saw huge amount of economic growth, a huge amount of growth in every facet, including in politics. The political challenges came in, of course, mid-66 that people always want to talk about when we had the incident in Lubiri. But this incident had built up from 1963 with the appointing of the Kabaka as titular president, 64, the referendum issue, then testing our identities. These things should be natural. These things should happen, you know, but these things should be resolved formally and peacefully. And there was an attempt for that. Of course, in 1965, by 1965, people were beginning to introduce non-formal processes, hence the assassination attempts on the Prime Minister leading to 1966, the Republican Constitution. But if you take us back to 1970, Uganda was a very different country by 1970, 71 when Amin came to power, than the Uganda that you know, we picked up from independence. So there was progress at the time, that early stages. Whether or not we can talk about progress today, you know, is a different matter. I can tell you, Uganda has fundamentally regressed.
We shall dig into that, of course, by looking at the different phases of the political and economic transformation that has come, including the miss and, of course, the hits within that trajectory. But let me come to Sarah Birete. Your reading of history is pretty clear. You understand the dynamics of Uganda's journey right from 1962. One would say we are in a good place. Others would say we could be in a better place. What's your take?
I think we could be in a better place. It's where I belong. You know, Uganda has had a turbulent political history since independence, with 9 presidents, but only one, the shared presidency between Nyamchoncho, Saulo Msoke, and the Wacha, which is rarely talked about, is the only one that handed over peacefully power to Obote to government.
That's right.
So out of the 9 presidencies, you have one shorter presidency.
For how many days did that trio govern?
The trio governed from May to December 1980.
May to December 1980.
That is what people call the Mwanga one, but Sarah is absolutely right. Actually, that is the presidency.
So what was Mwanga's position?
A chairman.
He was chairman of the commission, yes.
Yeah, so that is the presidency that is rarely talked about, but also the only presidency
that
has peacefully handed over power. So for me, that's a big challenge. And out of the 61 years of independence, you have 24 years occupied by 8 presidents and 37 years occupied by one president. And that is 61% of independent Uganda under President Museveni. So normally when we analyze, people say, why do you talk about President Museveni? But he has had the lion's share of independent
He's Mr.
Uganda.
61%.
Yes, actually. Yeah, so when you see whether we are making progress or not, like Kwame Nkrumah said, seek ye first the political kingdom, and the rest shall be added unto you. Once you don't stabilize the politics, there is no way you can develop the economy. And our results are clear so far. Look at increasing poverty, look at increasing disparities, look at increasing corruption, and all the talks that now dominate the national discourse, including nepotism and the tribalism, where the president spent half of his time in yesterday's address trying to explain the politics of identity. Yeah, so for me, I think we need to tackle the issue of the politics first in order for Uganda to reach takeoff stage. We have delayed so long, we have stagnated for a while.
We don't seem to have the ability to tackle the political question as effectively as we ought to, and that calls for a new approach to the socio-economic transformation. If the politics of the day is unable to be realigned to what we want, then how best can we work as we try to forge a way forward? Because to go forward as a nation, and you say we need to wait for politics to be clear, to be clean, to...
No, we don't wait. We clean it up. We don't wait. There's no time to wait. We have stagnated. If President Museveni had maybe stayed for 20 years, because now he's in diminishing returns. He is in diminishing returns at all fronts, be it economy, be it human rights, be it infrastructure development. I think for the last 2 decades we've been singing about the standard gauge railway. Our partners are using the standard gauge railway. We have not even dug the first, we have not even put the first block for the foundation as a country. So this stagnation, and he cannot resolve it. He has done his contribution. The natural effect is in diminishing returns, and unless he realizes that, however much time he spends on TV, however much time he spends in State House, he has done his best, and there's nothing more he can do for this country. But away from that, let's look at, for example, the 1995 Constitution, which also made 28 years yesterday. What were the gains of the 1995 Constitution? The 1995 Constitution, under Article 1, the spirit of the Constitution is captured in the preamble of the Constitution, and Article 1, power belongs to the people. The people who shall exercise their power in choosing their leaders in free, fair, credible elections. So once you don't take this power to the people, then you remove the accountability and transparency mechanism for the people to effectively delegate their leaders and check them on how they exercise that delegated power. We do not have even power to recall MPs in Uganda. We do not have power to enforce accountability. You can pick a chain of all corruption scandals in this country. There is no repercussion. I know that the IGG has presented a report, but where she recovered less than 3% of money lost. You state that every year we lose 10 trillion to corruption. You recover 8 billion. So you are not even at 10% of recovery level. You look at the investigations that Parliament does. Look at the Auditor General's reports. There is no impact. Look at Karamoja and Sheet scandal. No action. You know, the president just talks and talks and he wishes he could talk his way out of corruption. But he cannot even discipline the people immediately close to him, including his cabinet ministers. So once you have that level of stagnation, the other level of stagnation is a fusion between the pillars of the state and the regime or ruling government. You have all institutions of the state working as if they were branches of NRM, including the police, including the army, including the electoral commission, and to some extent, some members of the judiciary, just working as cadres to police the regime. So once you have that fusion of pillars of the state with the ruling government, then you have no democracy to talk about.
An interesting submission there, but allow me ask Joseph Otieno, Uganda's trajectory compared to other nations that attained independence at quite about the same time. They could be very much Africa or even in other parts of the third world. I need to understand what other nations might have done right that Uganda has faltered on, or what we could have completely gotten off the mark that other people actually do it, but do it better.
You know, I always struggle with this, and in many cases, sometimes people think I take Ugandans back too much. Your question is absolutely correct, but I just suffer with the burden of responsibility of trying to explain to Ugandans that from independence, and Sarah is absolutely right, Museveni has taken 61% of the duration of the age of our nation state, that from independence, within 8 years, Uganda built equivalent of what today's infrastructure would be possible, about 60% of existing infrastructure. Chris, from Kampala to your home in Busolwe, there is absolutely no single new road. No new road from Kampala to Busolwe, whichever route you take, including via Tirinyi. Tirinyi Road had already been negotiated, decided, and contracted when the Museveni came from the bush. So just think about it. If anything, Kampala, Jinja, Tororo Road is actually a terrible road, because I saw it better when I actually went to Jinja first time during a means time. So that's sort of really how bad this thing is. Now, most of those are things that were done within a very short period of time. Sarah is talking about the standard gauge railway. I always talk about it. You know, digging what NRS sunk, because when these fellows came from the bush, the railway network worked. At independence, we're talking independence. The guys who came into government at independence had an idea, had this nation at heart, you know, sought to unite this country, sought to rebuild this country, sought to change this country from the hands of the colonists and hand over power and economic power as such to the citizens of Uganda. Museveni today is dancing in Kitgum. Part of Museveni's dance in Kitgum is actually to calm down the Acholi, whom he sunk for 16 years in concentration camps. But beyond that, there is really nothing Museveni can show to the people of Kitgum. You know, today, nor in Gulu, nor in Apa, nor in Achua, nor in Atiak, except the fact that actually there are new citizens, including Balalo, you know, whom he's actually failed to contain. So really, what did we do? I think in part this thing just brings us back to the politics, because at the end of the day, this is really about politics. From independence to about 1962, you know, we opened up, because these are really what nation states are all about. People basically just want to live in a free nation state. People need to be able to have guaranteed access to health, guaranteed access to education. People need to feed themselves. People need to have a situation in which you don't walk at 6:30, you know, in Kololo at a junction at 6:30, and you find a young mother who's possibly 18, you know, with another child who's possibly 10, and another one at the back, and that's a woman from Karamoja. 61 years after independence, because sometimes we have these conversations, and I've been reviewing some of my conversations in the media. You know, do we talk semantics? Do we talk the big things that leave us around the privileges, or we really talk the real issues? Because by and large, it could be said that at 61, I'm okay. I have flown, including business classes, a few times, you know, kind of stuff, you know. But there are people who've never boarded trains, there are people who never boarded buses, and they're from Nagongera and they're from Busolwe. And some of them are possibly even particular extensions of Tungama.
I've heard stories of the train from Nagongera to Busolwe and then to Busembatia.
And every other time I talk about it, because the point is, without this index, our independence is useless, you know. We need to be able to make sure that the children of this country have guaranteed access to health, guaranteed access to education, guaranteed access to food, meaning at least an average 1 meal a day. All children, in terms of high proportion, without necessarily the figures.
You're absolutely right.
Know?
So you have placed the burden on President Yoweri Museveni and the regime on the need to correct and improve.
At the moment, at the moment, I think I can't afford to do that. I think Sarah gave the hint of that. After 38 years, coming to power by force of arms, by the way, at independence, our independence leaders were elected. Museveni was never elected. He comes in, you know, holds political parties, you know, at bay for 20 years, you know. He creates his own constitution, 1995 constitution, which by and large people hail, you know, I really don't hail it as much, you know, and reps it. The constitution is 28 years old. 28-year-old constitution, Mr. Museveni has broken it and broken it and broken it. And sometimes people conveniently want to refer to constitutional amendments of 1966 and 1967. Granted, some aspects of them were not right, but no, those are constitutional amendments by an elected government, you know, and an elected parliament. Just think about it. So really, by and large, these are the things. I am asking Ugandans today, you know, on Independence Day. It's not a day for celebration, it should be a day for reflections. Museveni has taken our people to Kitgum. I don't know how much is pending. taking into Kitgum. If you see the recent exhibitions on roads, the recent exhibitions on health facilities, recent exhibitions on educational facilities. And then, by the way, during the program, as I was coming here, some of the conversations you're having, again, I take you back to roads. You know, I just come from here, the other end of Ntinda, and you have a sheikh on the road in Kampala, sheikh.
Interesting.
In 2023, sheikh on the streets of Kampala.
Yeah.
The other day, I want to say this, Chris. The other day,
Very
2
quickly.
days ago, I was going to meet a network, and I was late by 20 minutes. I was held by an hour within a distance of 20 meters here within Kampala. That is a traffic shambles.
All right, the realities of the day perhaps could be very challenging, and one would look at them and say the government needs and ought to do much more than is being done. But when you look at 61 years, it's like looking at your own life as a human being. When you get away from, when you finish university and you get a job, you begin to work your life around settling.
You retire sometime.
Yeah, very few people look at what happened before that. That could actually determine what is happening.
Yes, Chris.
Yeah, you've gone after university, and then you tell yourself, I have my master's, I have my bachelor's, and I was very, it was magna cum laude.
What are you suggesting, Chris?
The years before 1986
good, yes.
had their own challenges.
Indeed.
And had issues that ought to be looked into.
And none of the mess today is related to those. And I told you, we had an economy that functioned. We had a public service that functioned. We had an education system that functioned. We had a rail system that functioned. We had road networks that functions. We had air traffic, air transport that functioned. We had a civil service that functioned. We had a judiciary that functioned. Can I tell you?
Please.
Personally, a cooperative system that embodied the economy and the rural citizens that took people to schools. And we had an educational system that made Museveni, go beyond wherever he came from, to Ntara School, to Dar es Salaam. That is impossible today. And let me tell you something very quickly, and I really didn't want to say this. Do you know, Sarah, that I have merely judicial review. I think, let me say it in this program, without prejudice. Merely judicial review, something that should take 6 months. It has taken nearly 3 years. I was told by a high court judge, I think I better mention it today. I was expecting a ruling. In the courts of Uganda, I was expecting a ruling on the 9th of December, a judicial review matter. Today is 9th of October. So how long is that? 10 months waiting, 10 months late from hearing from September. This is the mess under NRA. What do you blame on a previous government?
I'm not even trying to. I'm not laying blame, but I'm trying to excavate the perspective so we can be able to understand. Because, like I said, you could be grappling certain things after university that are as a result of what happened between the age of 6 and 12. Which would be...
It's real about Museveni's age and background. Because this is basically the Museveni we knew from Ntare. It has got nothing to do with Uganda and
Okay,
Uganda.
let me come to Sarah. The period before President Yoweri Museveni came to power, 1986, laid a foundation for pretty much what we have today. But it is not to go without mention that there were challenges and perhaps misses by the leaders of the day, including the regime that was in power between 1971 and 1979. There are some proponents of economic thought who say that if the economic collapse of that time had not happened, perhaps the trajectory would be different and might not have necessitated Museveni to come to power or to agitate to take a president off or overthrow a government.
I think a clear disclaimer we need to lay on table is that there are no perfect governments. Even the United States or Europe have challenges they are grappling with.
That's right.
So there will always be challenges at one given time. I think what we need to score is the issue of general citizenry. What is the welfare of the people? Like Joseph has already talked about, we had the functional transport systems, including Uganda Transport Company, that would transport students for free. All you needed was an ID.
That's correct. Yeah.
We had the cooperative movement that encouraged the productivity of the people, but also created markets for the people and encouraged export. I remember as a child, those lorries of produce for export. But today we are grappling, and they had a value addition chain. Like the coffee marketing board, it had a value addition chain that was almost at final stages. But what happened to the coffee marketing board? And today we are grappling with the fake issues like Pineti. What happened to that mechanism with the structural networks to the people, to the markets, to the value addition, for quality assurance, with extension workers? Today we are here gambling with the partnership development model. Why do we destroy systems as a nation and we put fake replicas in place? And do we call that progress? If you look at the income inequalities today, yes, as I finish, Uganda has one of the highest income inequalities at 45.6. That means that 45.6, it's almost 50-50. The gap between the rich and the poor. If you look at we have the 10% wealthiest people receive 35.7% of national income, and the 10% poorest earn 2.5% of national income. The 20% poorest share 5.8% of national income. Our poverty rates, 16.36 million Ugandans are living in extreme poverty. This is 36% of the population in extreme poverty. If you go to the Uganda's multidimensional poverty profile, it is extremely shocking that you have poverty levels to the percentage of 78%, rural poverty versus urban poverty. And most of it is northern and eastern Uganda. So what country are we talking about?
We shall be finding out what country we are talking about when we return from the break, and ask perhaps, should Uganda have taken on the structural adjustment program? Some say privatization has done its harm, including aspects like public transport that Sarah Birete says were good in the yesteryears, but are completely out of shape right now. I'll be right back. Stay with us. The conversation does continue.
Morning at NTV.
And you're still talking about shape.
Interesting there. The discussion goes on even behind the scenes, but I'm glad we are back and you're still with us. Many thanks for your company. If you're just joining us, welcome to the Kickstarter today, the 9th of October. We are, of course, marking 61 years of independence. Some people will say we are celebrating. Others might say we are commemorating, but I insist we are marking 61 years. The celebrations and that debate can be held at another table. The theme for this particular day is sustaining a united and a progressive nation, taking charge of our future as a free nation. It's of course coming on the backdrop of pressure on the nation and cohesion in Uganda. That debate, of course, formed the premise of the president's speech and address to the nation last evening. He continues to flatter, to deceive, according to some, when it comes to talking about aspects including sectarianism, tribalism, and the push to have corruption reduced in the country. Of course, corruption can never completely be eradicated, but that's also a debate we shall delve into a little bit later. Right now, let me ask the questions that I want to ask as the moderator. The economics of the day pretty much form the politics. If the economy is not vibrant, the politics will slide into anarchy. So much so that the decade between 1971 and 79, when Idi Amin was at the helm of power, there are some proponents of economic thought who say that the collapse of the economy at that time put Uganda on a very different trajectory, different from what the colonial masters had envisaged in handing over the reins of power in 1962, different from what Apollo Milton Obote and the first government envisaged or needed to roll out. And I doubt whether it was anything that was what Idi Amin wanted, or he was simply reacting to the realities of his own time. Let me begin with Sarah Birete. If Uganda had, for example, not undergone the kind of economic and political turmoil that we saw under the regime of Idi Amin Dada, would we be a better nation right now? And if so, could you take us through that?
Well, Idi Amin's regime on economic score has contradictions. Some people think he brought the economy into the hands of Ugandans. Others think he developed infrastructure like the place where we are seated today, by then called the Nile Mansions.
Yeah.
Almost all Uganda's properties abroad were purchased under Idi Amin. And what the other regimes have done is to sell or steal some of them. So he has negatives and positives. Of course, there was also scarcity of basic goods, scarcity mainly arising out of sanctions the people that had cut ties with his regime and could not bring in the supplies. So it has both negatives and positives. But if you look at, again, as I had talked about the Uganda's multi-dimension of poverty, and this profile measures the extent of deprivation of Ugandans, both all ages. You look at the per region, at the national level, we have rural multidimensional poverty at 55%, and urban multidimensional poverty at 23%. When you go to regions like Busoga, multidimensional poverty is at 61%, Bukedi multidimensional poverty 78%, Bugisu 72%, Karamoja 76%, Acholi 69%. These are extremely high levels of poverty. And when you go per region, the East has rural poverty of 67% and urban poverty of 46%. The North has rural poverty of 68% and urban poverty of 33%. The West is at rural poverty 43%, urban 23%, and Central 38%, 15% for urban. So other than the Central and the West, these other regions are regressing. People are drowning in poverty. People are drowning out of deprivation of basic needs. I know that President Museveni, in his #1 point, did say that what people want are basic needs: shelter, clothing, health, education. But how can you, after 37 years, and you are still dealing with the basics of shelter and food? Doesn't President Museveni see something wrong with his leadership? I know that he kept referring to that book of prayer, paragraph 3. They ought, they left what they ought to have done. And they do, and especially attacking media. But how about his government? Hasn't it left what they ought to have done? And don't they do what they ought to have not done? I think that clause reflects more on his governance.
Okay. Coming into 1986, on the backdrop of what President Museveni then said was misgovernance and political persecution, he was pretty much dealing with what Idi Amin had left and Milton Obote. He introduced a raft of measures that came to be known as the structural adjustment programs. These were basically ideas and directives from IMF and the World Bank. I say directives.
His bosses, yeah.
Okay, that is your word, his bosses, but they seem to be the bosses of the world. So Museveni cannot be, he should be perhaps in a way or two exonerated because he's acting under a larger influence that perhaps takes in pretty much everybody. But the structural adjustment programs ushered in privatization that dismantled pretty much of the public service architecture, including public transport, public health. If we hadn't undertaken such measures at the time, could we be in a better place?
Of course we would, but I just want to say something very quickly. This issue on Idi Amin, we fought Idi Amin, all of us predominantly fought Idi Amin. Number two, it's also true that some of the challenges, economic challenges Amin faced, were politically driven by us. All of us who were fighting Idi Amin, including undermining him.
That's right.
The coffee smuggling through...
Undermining him.
Yes, through my Bukedi and parcel for our Bukedi and part of Busoga. The coffee smuggling to Kenya to undermine the Magendo, Kase business was basically to do that. So it's a coordinated thing by Ugandans and Ugandan political elite, and in a way we take part responsibility for that, but also the global polity. But beyond that, 1979, Museveni comes in as Minister for Defense. So Museveni was around for nearly 2 years in government. They're supposed to have been sorting out those mess. So Obote came in 1980 May, but really from 1980 December after the election. So really Obote's government started in January 1981 effectively. But do you know what we did? Do you know what Obote did? Obote set up a ministry for rehabilitation. Some people make fun of it, ironically, and set up a ministry for supplies. To the extent that these are strange word departmental head ministries. By 1983, essential commodities had been restocked in the country. By 1983, most of the industries that had collapsed were functioning. So that by 1984, Uganda's economy had a net turnaround, taking us back to where we left in 71. So really there is this blame on Idi Amin by Museveni, who came in 1986, is a nonsense, a non-starter. And I know he can't afford and sustain a debate, maybe with me, Sarah, and him on evidence of many of these other things. I really challenge.
I hope I can get the two of you to face him
I would be delighted. That would be my independence breakfast presence.
I would make that appeal,
Ochieno versus Museveni on these issues.
The gauntlet has been thrown. Sarah Birete and Joseph Otieno want a debate with you. No doubt.
Will be civil, civil, contextual, evidence-based. You are our elder comrade, Museveni.
Right.
You know, so really, fast forward. By 1984, Uganda's standard of living had risen for the first time and had a complete economic turnaround. By 1985, when the government, UPC government was falling, most of the basics had really stabilized. Yes, Museveni came in when there had been 6 months of a mess between himself, the Okellos, and others. So by and large, that was also true. So Kampala was in a messy place. Kampala had been looted. But it is merely purely that. Most of our industrial sector had returned. Most of our health sector had returned. Most of the educational sectors had returned. You know, one of the things that had been done, Obote to set up a new, what they call third world schools, which is a building up onto what it was in the 60s. So you can take from Busolo Secondary School to Paya Secondary School. Most, they call them third world schools in most of the places. And these are most of the state schools that are struggling beyond the ones they established in the 60s. So fast forward, there is no excuse for Mr. Museveni to continuously talk about economic failures of the past. We had the economic miracles of the 60s, stagnation in the meantime, which is contextual as presented, but a complete turnaround in Obote too. There was a mess 6 months, you know, of the Okellos, but that 6 months involved Museveni also, because Museveni was part of the guys fighting around Kampala. But really, the economy generally was neither here nor there. The idea that they actually found an empty treasury is also not necessarily true, because Obote has been accused. Thankfully, Obote did not take anything in 1985, nor can I qualify how much were taken in by the Okellos. But to come to a structural adjustment program, very quickly, because of time, I want to tell you that in 1981, when Obote 2 came in, we came in with, on the basis of a UPC manifesto, to turn around our economy. On the basis of our manifesto, we went for a mixed economic approach and refused elements of SAP, in the structural adjustment program, because we completely believed that we wanted to rebuild our economy using domestically generated resources, but to ensure that actually we build capacity in education and health, but also we build capacity in industry, construction, and also banking. So Uganda's financial sector was boosted, and there were no for privatization. In 1982, Tiny Rollins, Museveni's friend, and he knows who it is, you know, one of these Pineti group of guys, came in to meet Obote via Kawunda, wanted to bribe Obote because he wanted to take on the cotton industry and then the oil industry sector. Obote refused. When this guy insisted that it would be a good deal for him, Obote and his ministers, this guy threatened to arrest him. It's Tiny Rollins who later became Mr. Museveni's financer. Mr. Museveni was claiming to be a Marxist from 1971 in Dar es Salaam. Fast forward to where it was. He changed himself in 1978. Did he need to do that? No, he did not need to do it. As I said, we used the same economic policies we had in the 60s in 1981, and by 1985, our economy had turned around. Museveni did not need to go for SAP. Now, his SAP thing, the SAP version that he went for was worse. A SAP version where you go ahead and sell off Uganda Commercial Bank. Kenya Commercial Bank is now here. You go and sell off our railways. You go and sell off our bus transportations. You sell out every aspect of Ugandan economies. You sell out, the guy is talking about housing.
Direct corporation.
$1. We built houses in Kampala. The houses that we built, he gave it to some of his half slippers wearing and other guys from the bush. So the guy sold Uganda's economy to himself and to his foreign friends. That's what Museveni did. Museveni sold Uganda's economy and Uganda's livelihood and Uganda's future to himself, his family, some of his buddies and his foreign friends. That is what he did. It was no structured adjustment. Guess what? Ghana that took this very quickly. That took on this via rolling. Ghana, because you asked me about comparative nation, Ghana is a completely turned around economy who were with us at par, including the fact that Ghana bought part of the SAPs. Do you know what he did? Jerry Rawlings, notwithstanding everything else, was doing it for Ghana. Museveni sought to do it for himself, his family, his grandchildren, his buddies, And you know what? For his friends who keep on backing. That is the difference today at independence.
He talked about a very Marxist Museveni.
Allegedly, yes.
Yeah,
Right.
1978 through to the 80s. And when he came to power,
Even
perhaps...
in the 10-point program.
Yeah, he realized that perhaps the Marxism slant was not going to help him govern effectively, and he had to begin to let his guard down and embrace the neoliberal capitalism. But introducing the SAPs was a case of unnecessary evil for him as a leader at the time, wasn't it?
Well, the SAPs were, you know, originally a plan of IMF and World Bank. And then the so-called, you know, the so-called new breed of African leaders embraced it. But the SAPs were not only implemented in Uganda. So you look at Tanzania, which basically was running a socialist program. They implemented SAPs, but they chose what?
Yeah.
What to change and what not to change. Nobody said you must wholesale do this. Did the SAPs, for example, tell Uganda to sell Uganda Dairy Corporation for $1? Did they? Did they tell us to destroy Nightil to the extent that even when we had the opening at Agoa, we had no products to take to the market? Did they tell us to dilapidate the coffee marketing board and then reintroduce Pinetti to take over the best seed of coffee, level 18, or through a monopoly arrangement? Did the SAPs tell us to do that? No. Did the SAPs tell us to destroy the cooperative movement? And then reintroduce SACCOs, which are basically money lenders at grassroots levels? No. So I think really we need to take blame. We need to take responsibility where we have failed as a country, where we have failed the economy. You cannot address the economy and then expect that you have somewhere to hide when the wind comes. We don't.
So going forward, what is the job for the managers of the economy right now? We've seen, and this one was it's very commendable, at the beginning of, or rather the post-COVID period, there was a little bit of, tinkering here and there until somebody came and said, no, let there be no tinkering, let us face it the way it is, it will go. And then some Ugandans talked and said it's not possible, we must have interventions here and there, but somebody stayed their course. And I'm specifically talking about Ramadan Gobi, the PS. It has worked somehow, but going forward, in as far as economic trajectory is concerned, how best, I'm not asking you to advise Gobi, no doubt, perhaps I just want to pick your mind on what kind of economy we see going forward in light of what we need to achieve in the years to come.
I'm told they watch these programs and they pick our advice for free anyway, which is fantastic, one of the reasons why we're here. But no, Gobi was a fantastic economy while it was at moves. But, once you go into this thing, like there's some people who make jokes that once you join NRA, certain things go into your brains. I'm not really quite sure, to be fair, to really average economists, particularly civil servants in public servants, civil servants in Uganda, whether or not you really can blame them. These are political decisions. These are broader policy decisions, economic decisions. They're manifesto decisions. They're visionary decisions. I'm not quite sure whether anything can change majorly in this country unless there is a new direction. And a new direction will require a new government. And a new government will be clearly a government that does not whisk off opposition leaders from the airport to transfer them at home for free from Entebbe. And so it will not be a government that, as I said, finds Uganda's coffee exports and the coffee marketing, rather coffee plant in Bugolobi being the second best in the world, following after Brazil, and then you turn it into a Pinetti deal. Really, all that we need to do is to refocus on how much of our national budget goes to agriculture, how much of our national budget goes to health, because health is linked, how much of our national budget goes to education, how much of our national budget goes to genuine infrastructure, and how much of that goes to Mr. Museveni's family, his suits, and his military. If it's only when we do that that we shall begin to say that, well, what are some of the key issues that Sarah was trying to do? It's actually almost criminal. And Mr. Museveni, you need to be held responsible for these crude figures. Chris, your Bukedi and my Bukedi is the poorest sub-region officially on the basis of the figures presented by Sarah. It's extraordinary. extraordinary. So, and yet Bukedi was the lead contributor in education index when it comes to academic performance, up to and including Idi Amin's time. And so, how do you turn around this, the northern economy, particularly the Chole economy? Do you go to buy off their land, or do you create enabling environment for people who've come from concentration camps created by yourselves to be able to get into productivity?
All right, no doubt. There's a lot to chew on, and of course the debate will continue. But just a reminder that national events marking 61 years of independence are being held in Kitgum, and of course our team is on the ground, led by Jackson Onyango, to give us the updates on what is happening ahead of the arrival of an estimated 800 special guests, according to the Minister for the Presidency, that is Midi Babalanda. 800 guests across board, public, members of the public, members of the diplomatic corps, members of parliament, and of course others. Let's now go to Kitgum and hear what is on the ground. We shall be back in the studio to react on some of the submissions.
You're watching Morning at NTV.
All right, let's now go to Kitgum, where the national events are being held for Independence Day. That is 61 and 61st anniversary, I must say. Our team, that is led by Jackson Onyango, is on the ground to speak to some guests, some commentators, as well as members of the public. We shall be submitting on those views and comments that come through. A very good morning, Jackson. Good morning, Jackson.
Very good morning to you all who are watching NTV this morning. Happy Independence Day, the 61st Independence Day. And we are coming to you live from Kitgum Municipality at the marketplace, where, of course, many Ugandans from this part of the world are gathered this morning, carrying on with their businesses. Others have come to shop. I actually didn't know that independence is still this special, because there are very many people here at the marketplace buying meat, buying this and the other, I think, to prepare for the day. Of course, we shall be speaking to them to hear what they have to say about this Independence Day. This 61st Independence Day has been organized here in Kitgum Municipality, in Kitgum District, at Farm Institute, where the President is expected to officiate at this event later on in the day. We were there last evening and early in the morning. Preparations all were set for the occasion that will be honored by the President, and we expect that about 41 Ugandans will be awarded medals for their job that they have done in trying to transform Uganda to what it is today. And of course, we shall be taking stock of where Uganda has reached and possibly where it has to go. So allow me just to speak to a few people here at the market to hear what they have to say about the day. Good morning, boss.
Hey, morning, sir.
How are you? What is your name?
Fine. I'm called Onyancham Geoffrey.
What do you do here in Kitgum Municipality?
I work with Riam Company.
Yes. So tell me about this day. I've been seeing people coming around here buying this and the other. Is this day different from any other day that you have had?
Yeah, it is very different. The reason being that it is not busy as usual. People are not having money. You see, I've just bought this one, but if I have to compare with last year, by now I would have had another stock, but the stock is moving slowly.
But you had just come a few minutes ago and I'd seen some people here. Yeah, so maybe it will be picked up. Do you have hopes that maybe it will pick up in the course of the day?
I'm not so sure, because the stock, as you can see, is not all that moving very fast. But I believe they will come and pick.
Okay. And then just to understand from you, when we talk about Independence Day, what do you understand from it? Do you think you here in Kitgum, you are independent, you can carry on with your business in terms of elections, you can vote whom you want? What do you think about Uganda today?
Election, yeah, about independence. Yeah, independence. I'm not a politician, but I can say, because I deal with people. But people here, what they always say is, it's so different. Like today today the turnout might not be all that okay because people are not happy this side.
But in speaking about, I thought people would be happy because for the first time I was here about 5 years ago and there was no tarmac. I can now see tarmac. I'm seeing a market is being constructed there. I think this should make people happy.
Yeah, the tarmacs they put, it is there. They even put the market. But what about the life of people here? People are living a miserable life. Although we have the tarmacs, the government is trying, but still, if you go deep in the villages, you go deep in the in homes, you find people are not all that okay.
Yeah. Thank you very much for speaking to us. Of course, you have heard from him. He's saying that the business is yet to pick up. He had just arrived a few hours ago, and he expects maybe at the end of the day it will pick up, but he's saying it is slow at the moment. I'm also seeing here at the butcher, people are busy. There are clients who have come to buy. I want to know whether this is how it is always, or this is just a different day for us here. Good morning, boss.
Morning to you.
Yes, your names and what do you do?
My name is Moses Ojoka. I'm Kitgum, butcher.
Yes. Tell us, I'm seeing people are many here. Is this how it is always?
You know, anyway, in celebration of our independence, we like it. And it's very good this time that our president has come to us to open our market, main market. So we are very happy.
Okay.
So how you are seeing people here, they are busy because you are going to see from here.
So can you say you are economically independent just as Uganda got its independence from the colonial rulers?
And it's okay, that's what you know that you are saying. I know that it's like I'm independent now. So everything I'm doing what the government wants. At the same time, yes, he has paid it.
Yes, at the same time.
No more, I'm busy, brother. So,
okay. We are going to let you continue selling, and we wish you all the best on this Independence Day.
That's good.
Yes, I'm Onyango Jackson. I work for NTV. Yes, thank you. Yes, you have heard also from a butcher here at Kitgum Municipality Market who has been speaking to us, telling us about this Independence Day. And of course, like you could have seen in the picture, he says he's a very busy man doing his business today. And that's how the situation is here. Just a few meters away from where I am, we're expecting the president today to commission the Kitgum Municipality Market, which was funded by the African Development Bank. So we are going also to hear from the official just to tell us the number of people they expect to join that market, and whether these people who are transacting their business from across the road will have to shift to the main market. Of course, in the past we have had challenges where in different market areas, whether in Kampala, the numbers of people were initially a little low, but with the time that could have changed. So it is the same thing here. The market has been established and the president will be commissioning it later on the day. Maybe just to give you a picture, 5 years ago, or just about 2020, there was no single tarmac in this municipality. And if you were coming from Gulu city to this area, that is about 103 kilometers, basically you were driving on a Maram road, and today it can take you about 2 hours roughly to make it to Kitgum municipality or Kitgum district. But previously that was not the case. You would take more than 3 hours on the road just trying to make it here, and that must have changed the livelihoods of the people here in Kitgum and the northern side. This district borders South Sudan on the northern side and Karamoja on the eastern side, and on the southern side you have Gulu and Pader districts which are connected to this area. Of course, historically, this is the home of the late Janan Luum, who was killed by President Idi Amin, as we are told by history, and of course that was confirmed that indeed he was killed, and later on an accident was staged. And that day, this time is marked as a public holiday in Uganda in memory of the Archbishop Janan Luum. We are still in Kitgum, and we are going to be speaking here to people before later on we shall be transitioning to the main grounds at the Kitgum Municipality Farm Institute, where this year's Independence Day celebrations will be marked. But I'm going to continue to talk to our women here in the market just to tell us the feel of the day, whether the business is usual, whether they are benefiting, are they independent. And right now I'm going to have an opportunity to speak to a woman who is also doing business around here. Good morning, madam. Your names and what do you do?
My name's Anena Konseabe. We are celebrating the independence of the 76th anniversary, 61st.
How is it? Tell me about business. How is it moving? Is it slow? Is it picking up? Are people coming?
The business is going slowly. People are busy buying rice, tomatoes, and other things in the market.
Oh, and meat. So you are selling cabbage, and that means today they don't want to eat our vegetables.
They are busy buying meat and some chickens.
So for today, you should have been independent and maybe stayed at home and leave people to eat their meat. Is that the case?
No, we have to celebrate together with others. Yeah.
You tell me about Kitgum here. What has changed for you that you could say that you are independent? Do you see any change, or there is still much that needs to be done by the government?
It needs to be done by the government.
What needs to be done?
Now, as we see now, now you see we are now sitting in the pavement ways, and what we are seeing, if you can see even from the other side of the western side, you find as if rubbish it is being displaced in the roundabout. But we thank God also, the government has prepared for us even a new market, and they are going to open it today. And that is our joy, and that is we love that.
So, do you think you are among those people who will be able to go to the new market, or the market is going to be for maybe a special group of people?
We are the market vendor. We are going in that market. Okay. Yeah, we are going to benefit from there. Yeah.
Have you been sensitized or briefed about how much you will have to pay to go to that market, and do you think you will afford it?
Not yet. Not yet. They have not even revealed that secret to us. Yeah.
But you are hopeful that you will be able to go there?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much for speaking to us, and wish you a very happy Independence Day celebration. So, of course, you have been hearing from a market vendor here in Kitgum Municipality who is hopeful that she will be able to go to the new facility and leave the roadside here, and possibly that will make her life better. We are still coming to you live from Kitgum Municipality, and this is the market area. Of course, we have been speaking to different members of this area, the population here, and one thing they hail the government for is security, and possibly that's why they are able to carry on with their businesses. Because right now, of course, there are different deployments, covert and overt security personnel who are just trying to. Security has been beefed up because of the day and whenever the president is in a place, of course, that is expected. However, other than this, the situation always is calm here, except for one component. They say they have always had attacks from the Karimojong or the neighboring Karamoja that is on the eastern side, who during famine or drought seasons come to graze in this area, and at times they have ended up being attacked with their cattle being raided, and therefore this is something they appeal to government to always find a way of ensuring that this does not happen. So security-wise, that's what we have got from the population here. But in terms of health, they also say that they need still to have health centers established in this area, because right now, in case of referral, they have to travel as far as Gulu city, where there is a regional referral. So, of course, that we hope that will be done. Basically, the situation is calm here in Kitgum Municipality, and people are going on with their business, like you can see. And that is a positive thing, and you can say maybe Uganda has made strides. If you're talking about the GDP of Uganda today, the size of our economy is estimated at about 190 trillion shillings, and that, of course, has expanded several times from what it was in 1962 when we gained our independence. If you're talking about the tarmac road, according to Uganda National Roads Authority, Uganda now has an estimated 7,000 kilometers of road. That is different from what the situation was in 1962 or thereabout, where the kilometers of roads were about just 700 kilometers. So if you're talking about 7,000 kilometers of roads today, it means that if you divide by the period Uganda has been independent, or maybe from about 1986, the NRM government has afforded to construct some every year 160 kilometers equivalent, because this government has been in power for about 37 years, and therefore that gives you a picture of what the situation is like here in Kitgum municipality and the rest of the country. We shall be transitioning from here to the Kitgum Municipality Farm Institute, where the main event will be taking place later on in the day.
Many thanks, Jackson Onyango, for that live report coming to us from Kitgum, and of course showcasing what is no doubt a vibrant business environment, but one that shows what is happening across the entire country. Too many borders, and that is also one aspect of Uganda's economy that can be discussed on another day. Allow me talk about the sustaining a united and a progressive nation, taking charge of our future as a free nation. Taking charge is the key word for me here. And coming to Sarah Birete, I would like to understand your views on how best Ugandans can take charge of the future.
Well, if you look at the theme for today's independence celebrations, I think it's a mockery. The most contested rights in Uganda today, yes, are the civil and political liberties. If you put a torch on the enjoyment of fundamental rights and freedoms in this country, especially civil and political rights, there's nothing to write home about. So when you say that sustaining a united and progressive nation, taking charge of the future as a free nation, just on Thursday, the leader of opposition was arrested from the tarmac in international space, Entebbe International Airport. That tarmac is international space. Captured on the tarmac. 300 people of his supporters and more are still missing. Journalists were beaten. People were kidnapped. So what free nation are we talking about here? When you still preside over kidnaps and torture, just because young Ugandans do not support you and you are continuing to claim on power, and you kidnap and torture them, then you come and say you are taking charge of a free nation? A free nation for who?
Joseph, Sarah is not very happy.
No.
Is there anything to sustain?
No, most Ugandans. Is there anything to sustain? How do you sustain? How do you sustain a broken system? No, the interruptions by NRA in 1986, which gave a certain section of Ugandans genuinely hope that it was possibly dawn of a new era, was broken when NRA banned political parties. Weeks and months later formalized that, and in part links to what Sarah is saying. And I'll keep on saying, as a political party leader and somebody who absolutely believes in pluralist multipartism, there is no way you can talk about a free nation when there is no free space for competition of ideas. There's no way in which you can talk about a free nation, as Sarah says, where the official leader of opposition, is whisked up from an international airport. Do you know what? Granted, we talk about Janani Luwum, who was killed by Idi Amin, but Janani Luwum was killed by Idi Amin, who was a non-military guy who did not believe in political competition. And so so there was you can't compare with that. But in a democratic, in the history of our country, there was never a time in Obote 1 or Obote 2 that you could talk about it. Granted, very important. Some people will say that Ben Chiwanuka was arrested. Ben Chiwanuka was arrested, with evidence when he was involved, and absolutely true, involved in assassination attempt of the then president. Beyond that, you cannot talk about members of parliament experiencing what leaders of opposition have experienced under NRA in either Bote 1 or Bote 2, because those are really the spaces. Or indeed, for that matter, perhaps even the interim administration between 1979 April and 1980, the interim administration in which Mr. Museveni was a member of cabinet. So really, there is really not much right about politically. Economically, as I said, as the people in the market in Kitgum were saying, you know, what is it there for them to celebrate? You know, as I said, these are guys who were kept in concentration camps for 16 years. Granted, the extension road has been done, but that road is 35 years late. The Gulu Kitgum Road was to have been done around the same time that Busolwe Butaleje Toro Road was supposed to have been done about 40 years ago, 1989. So it really is neither here nor there, so nothing special, you know, about that. But on the other hand, you construct a market and what? Construct a market where people cannot afford, you know, to come and make their purchases when their land are actually being grabbed by a few people associated with Museveni's army and a few people who are actually directly linked to the Balalo in northern Uganda. It's actually very interesting that we're talking about, the people are talking about the Karamojong raid. I've actually argued that perhaps since the Balalo are coming from very many places and very far off places and they're able to cross Karuma, maybe, you know, we need to begin to have a conversation on why a congested Karamoja, you know, we do not have spaces and possibilities to say that let's open a corridor for Karamoja, because this is their livelihood, and Museveni has argued for the livelihood of these people as pastoralists. Maybe we need to give the Karamojong people, since they're also Ugandan citizens, an opportunity, possibility to come and graze somewhere in Karuma or fairly in the cattle corridor in Ankole, particularly where UPC opened up ranches there and equipped and gave water access and many other places. Maybe that is one of the things we should do. And if we do that, we shall be talking national unity. If we're doing that, we shall be talking national cohesion, because we're being fair and equitable, aren't we?
Inclusivity. How can we best achieve that? He talks about the ability to allow some people be able to access certain places, but inclusivity in that context is understandable. There is the context of civic space. How best can we achieve that? What are you doing?
You know, there are four things.
Yeah, your own role in Uganda's independence as a civil society can also be debated.
Inclusivity, first of all, is promoted through meritocracy and competition. So once you promote that in all avenues of service,
that's right,
then people will effectively compete, and those who qualify will be able to participate in governance on merit. But going into fixing the civic space, we need rule of law, equality before the law. We need functional institutions, institutions that can work as pillars of the state and not enablers of a particular regime in power. We need to have, you know, application, because we have selective application of the law in many avenues, be it political, be it, you know, we need to make sure that there is fairness and equity in all that we do. And once you don't have these elements, then there's nothing to talk about. There's nothing to write home about in terms of democracy.
Sarah Birete and Joseph Otieno, many thanks. Can I ask, are you going to prepare a special lunch at home to celebrate, to mark, to commemorate independence? 61 years?
There is nothing to celebrate.
No, are you going to do a special meal? Yes.
There's no reason why I should do a special meal today, because what we founded in 1962 has been broken by NRA. Okay. And most importantly, also today is a day that I reflect fundamentally, because tomorrow I'll be looking at the fact that the founding president died on 10th October, Milton Obote. And so it's a somber, mixed time for me, and I'm trying to wonder, this man that I saw suffering, taking dry tea in Lusaka as if he was some thief, thanks to NRA, whether or not he really fought for independence, and whether or not there is anything that we can pick from. But I'm still very hopeful, very quickly. I'm very, very hopeful that the future of this country is possible, but that future is going to be guaranteed post-Museveni.
Sarah is going to have a special meal.
Well, I think what we need is not special meals. We need to critically reflect on where do we want to go as a country.
Okay. Thank you very much for the submission, and most importantly, sharing your perspective on Uganda's 61 years of independence. Just a reminder that celebrations, that is national events, are being held in Kitgum at the Farm Institute. That's where President Yoweri Museveni will be presiding over. Our own team, headed by Jackson Onyango, will be bringing us minute-by-minute broadcasts, and of course live relay will be on NTV later, and of course we do expect some commentary to come your way. So whatever you're up to, please do stay home and keep it to NTV and watch understand exactly what is being done, and also see those who will be receiving some commendation in terms of medals for their role in Uganda's independence. For now, that's it. On behalf of my colleague Priscilla, Regina Naloga, and indeed the team behind the scenes, many thanks for keeping us company. It's been a pleasure. Have yourselves a lovely day and indeed, happy Independence Day.